Welcome to the Smart Publishing Impact Series. I'm Renée Lautermilch, Chief Editor at Smart Publishing, and this is the podcast where we explore all things writing, publishing, and the impact of storytelling. In each episode, I'll share insights and strategies to help you navigate the book journey, whether you're writing, publishing, or already an author. Plus, you'll hear from inspiring authors who are using their book to change lives. And if you're passionate about storytelling and ready to make an impact, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Now let's get started. Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Smart Publishing Impact Series. I'm Renée Lautermilch, Chief Editor for Smart Publishing, and today's episode is on children's books. Now, ordinarily, children's books aren't of a type of genre that we do a lot at Smart Publishing. We do them occasionally when it's a good fit for both us and the author. But I get a lot of questions from people who have either written a children's book, are in the process of writing a children's book, or really want to write children's books. And so I thought I would do this episode and also turn it into a blog as a way to answer a lot of the common questions that I get. But, you know, there are a lot of questions that people who have written a children's book or are writing one don't even know to ask. And so I'm hoping that this will be a helpful resource so that if you're writing a children's book, you don't get too far down the path before you understand what your options are. So the first thing that I want to go through is I want to go through probably the most important part, and that is that there are a lot of different ways that you can do children's books, right? I've got a toddler myself, so our house is littered with children's books. And when it comes to a category of books, there are probably no other categories that have anywhere close to the amount of variation as children's books. And so when we're talking about children's books, I'm assuming we're talking about smaller children, not once we get into the teen and young adult genre, which is going to be far less illustrations, far less customization. That's going to start to be more of an adult kind of formatted book, insofar as it's more words, more text, less images. So just to show you a few things that I have here, I've got this little book about pets. It's got a whole customized sound panel on it. A lot of these books too are like sensory learning books too. So like this one feels kind of smooth with scales. This one's kind of furry. This one's kind of rough. And then of course, when you push them, you probably won't be able to hear because I'm recording through my mic and my headphones. But it plays sounds. So little customization there. This other one that I have by Scholastic, which is a giant in the children's book industry, has like this popper on it. And as you go through the pages too, you can see that there are a lot of customizations. The star has like ridging and everything. Sorry if you're like listening and you're not seeing this on video. If you want to see it on video, visit us at YouTube. And then I've got another book here where it's kind of like a soft cover. It's soft, squishy. It's got some little reflective stars on it that are kind of glittery looking. And of course, most of the books that I've held up already are what's called a board book. So if you don't have kids, you're probably not going to understand what a board book is. If you do have kids, you know what a board book is and you know why it's helpful to have that for the young toddler ages. A board book, if you don't know, is something that has more of a cardboard type of thickness when it comes to the quote unquote page paper, so that your kid can't just grab it and tear a page out of the book or tear a page in half. They're very, very durable. So those ones that I just shared with you, you know, as we talked about the level of variety and customizations, those are made through specialty printing companies. Those have to go through specialty printing companies. And when you go through a specialty printing company, there's going to be a lot of different costs associated. The main costs are that you're going to have a setup fee, and a setup fee is essentially what you're paying to have them set up their printing in a way that will be able to print whatever your specific customizations are. So that takes work because it's not just a standard setup that they can print anybody's books if there's a lot of customizations. Then, of course, there's a minimum fee. The amount of work that they're doing, they're going to make sure that you're going to order a minimum amount of books. Typically, it's anywhere between $10,000 to $30,000 of books, okay? Then think about that. Once you've had that minimum amount created, unless you've picked a printer who also does logistics in terms of storage and drop shipping, you're going to have to figure out where are you going to store these books and how are people going to order them? How are you going to get these books to people? So if you're listening and you're already overwhelmed with that idea, that's why it's really, really, really ideal if you don't have those types of funds to spend on your children's book dream, to use an on-demand printing service like Amazon KDP, Lulu, or Ingram Spark. So I've got a couple more examples to show you. Again, I'll try to be as verbally descriptive if you're just listening to me rather than watching on YouTube. But if you can catch the YouTube, awesome. So one of them that I have here is a hardcover, and that hardcover it's a pretty standard hardcover. I think this is a pretty large one. I think this is an 8.5 by 11 trim size, I believe. And then of course you've got high quality color paper in here as well. So that's something that can be done on more of a on-demand print. Maybe not to this exact specification, but this was the best example that I have. And then the other one is more of a paperback example. And so, obviously it has the consistency of a paperback. It's bendy wendy. It's got the pages that, a kid could tear them. High quality color printing in there as well. So the hardcover and paperback with no customizations are formats that you can do through the on-demand printing platforms that I already named. Something else that we haven't talked about is ebook format, or my favorite, Kindle, because I publish mostly on Amazon KDP. I get a lot of children's book authors who stop and pause and say, why would we even do a Kindle? Because they're thinking about how, okay, well, when I'm sitting in bed with my kid reading a bedtime story, it's typically on, a hardcover or a paperback format. But let's not forget, probably the majority of tablets in this country are owned by kids. So absolutely, if you're not publishing your book on an ebook format on Kindle, you're missing out. I am literally looking at my daughter's Amazon Fire tablet that is like 10 feet away from me. And when I open that up, it actually has a books option where you can go and you can peruse books that are in the children's ebooks category. So absolutely, it's an option. The more options you have, the more books you will sell, because the more you are catering to what people are looking for. And so if somebody's coming and they want it specifically just to download to their kids' Amazon Fire tablet and you don't have that format, you just missed a customer. So absolutely, you should do it on every format that makes sense. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper now that we're talking about these on-demand printing services. You remember when I talked about when we're going with specialty services, there's all these upfront fees. When you're going with an on-demand printing platform like Amazon KDP, you pay nothing. And the reason for that is you're working within the parameters of Amazon KDP. And so you have no inventory of books that's just sitting around. when someone goes on Amazon and they order your book, it is print to ship. So they literally print the book in their printing infrastructure setup that they have, and then they ship it. So you are simply having the print costs deducted out of your royalties. And of course, Amazon keeps a share of those royalties as well. And that's how Amazon makes money in that format. That's how it gets paid for, essentially. So no upfront costs to you whatsoever. Now, because there's no setup fee, because there's no customizations, you do have to work within the on-demand printing platform's parameters. So that means that you can't just pick any trim size you want. You can't just have a book that is whatever length, whatever height you want. You have to pick from their specific options of trim size. Also, you're going to have minimum page counts. There are minimum and maximum page counts when you're looking at on-demand printing. And this is really important for you if you've written a children's book, because children's books are notoriously very short, very few words. We're not talking about a 90,000 standard, word novel here. We're talking about way, 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 way less than that. So your minimum page count on your paperback format versus your hardcover format are different. Lots of reasons for that. You need enough pages to where the binding is going to hold, essentially, and also it's not going to be basically just a pamphlet. So for your minimum page count for paperback, you need at least 24 pages. So if you've written a book and it's 11 pages long, you're not going to be able to upload that into Amazon KDP. It's not going to work. You're going to have to figure out how you can extend the length of that book. Now, if you really like the hardcover finish, which I personally, if I ever wrote a children's book, I would want to do hardcover. It's just a nicer quality, but you're going to need a minimum of 75 pages for that. Okay, so then I'm starting to sort of turn my expectations, if I'm a children's book author, into, okay, maybe I'm not writing for the 2 to 5-year-old age group. Maybe I'm going to increase that age group a little bit to where they have the attention span and the desire to want to read and look at a book that's longer than 24 pages. So really, really important as you are writing your book to understand that, because if you go to publish on Lulu, Ingram Spark, or Amazon, and you're not meeting their specifications, you just sunk a lot of time and work down the hole. Now, the last thing that I'm going to get to is royalties. And this isn't just a children's book thing. This is across multiple authors. Probably the top 1%, maybe 2% of authors are making a living off of their royalties. So if you've written a book with the dream to, quit your job and just earn money off of the royalties for the rest of your life, it can happen if you're the next J.K. Rowling. If you're the next Stephen King is probably not a great example because we're talking about children's books here. But R.L. Stine, there we go, Goosebumps. We all loved Goosebumps growing up. But you're going to have to really be a heavy hitter, because the royalties will probably pay some pretty good grocery bills, but they're not going to pay your mortgage. They're not going to pay everything else, all the different expenses you have, unless you fall into that top 1% to 2% bracket of authors. Okay. Now you do get to keep really good royalty shares from these on-demand printing platforms. And that's another benefit of looking at, multiple formats as well, because you get to have different pricing strategies for those formats. So typically, unless you have expanded distribution, which I'll explain that a little bit, I'm going to talk specific to Amazon KDP here because that's the one that I know best. So typically, you're going to have a 60% royalty in place on your paperback and hardcovers, less the printing cost. So typically, especially for a smaller book, printing cost is going to be, well, we're going with full color too, since we're talking about children's books. It's going to be anywhere from like $2 to $5. And so you have to, of course, think about your pricing strategy from there in terms of what you keep. If you go for expanded distribution, which is only available on paperback, then that goes down to 40%. Expanded distribution is where you want your book available for bookstores and libraries to be able to order and keep in stock if they wish. So that's what expanded distribution looks like. It's beyond just the ability to get it off of Amazon. And then, of course, the great thing about Kindle is, bump your royalties up 70% there. So now that we're on Kindle, we don't have print cost, but we do have an 8-cent delivery fee. There's the gist on publishing children's books. I hope that you got value out of this episode. If you did, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and tell someone you know. So until next time, keep writing your story.